Okay, whenever we're looking at a shape that looks like this, it's not very confusing because what we want to do is identify our triangle. All right. So whenever we're looking at this particular shape, if you notice, this big triangle right here gives us two of its angle measures. Do you see that? So then if I go ahead and I highlight it, that actually would probably help, and you can do that on your study guide today. Then you see that, or you realize that you only need how many more measures? Just one. And what do we know that a triangle has to equal? Its angles have 180. So what am I going to go ahead and do? Subtract them all from 180, right? So go ahead and do that in your calculator. Do 180 minus 30 minus 25. And what do we get? 125. All right. So if this angle right here is 125, what is the relationship between this angle and the angle that they want us to give the angle measure for? They're vertical. So that means my angle measure is the same. So what is our answer then? 125 degrees. Once again, it's not drawn to scale. All right, just keep that in mind. Okay, so for our next problem, we have another star. And we're going to do the same thing. Just by glancing at the problem, can you tell which triangle you need to select? Which one you think? Very good. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same triangle again because this particular triangle has two angles again. You see that? So once again, we're going to subtract from 180. So what do we get when we do that? 180 minus 60 minus 52. Very good, 68. Now, that is this angle measure. What is the relationship between the angle that we just found and the angle that we want to find? Yes, they have to equal 180 because they are supplementary, right? So what is 180 minus 68? 112. Now, let's go back real quick because I just want to remind you of that theorem that one of our friends in here said that she noticed. And that was that anytime we're finding an angle on the outside of our triangle, the exterior, it's always the same as the sum of these two angles. So that's just a shortcut you could have done. You could have just added these two together and it still would have given you 112. But you don't have to do that because you can still do your triangle sum rule. Okay? All right. One more example. This looks a little bit stranger because you don't really have a large triangle, right? You really want to highlight the smaller triangle. And we want to do that because even though it looks like we only have information for one angle, we actually can figure out what this angle is right here. And how can we determine what this angle measure is? What can we go ahead and do? Very good. We're going to go ahead and say 180 minus 103, which is what? 77. Very good. Okay, now how can I determine what this angle is? Very good. 180 minus 77 minus 25, which gives you what? 78. And you always want to try to solve your triangle first. And then after your triangle solved, then look at the angle that they're asking for and determine the relationship between the angles. So what's the relationship between 78 and this angle? They are what? They're vertical. So that means that this would be what measure? 78 degrees. Very, very, very good. Ooh, my 8 looks funny. Okay. I know I said one more, but let's look and see. Just one more. Why not? Okay, so once again for this problem, would I want to highlight a larger triangle or would I want to highlight a smaller triangle? The smaller, because we have the most information there. How can I determine what the adjacent angle is right here next to 110? Very good. And what is 180 minus 110? 70 degrees. Okay? And then what are we going to do in order to figure out what this angle is? Very good. Subtract it from 180. And you're going to get 87 degrees. Okay, now let's look once again for the angle relationship between the angle that we just found and the angle we want to find. What are these to one another? They're supplementary. So what do you go ahead and do then? Very good. 180 minus 87, and that's going to give you what? 93 degrees. Very good. Going back to what I told you on the earlier slide, is there another way that we could have worked this problem without subtracting from 180? What do you notice? We want the angle that's on the outside, right? So that means that it would be the sum of these two angles right here. And is 23 plus 70 equal to 93? But do you have to work it that way? No, you can work it just with your triangle sum rules. All right, any questions? Do you feel like you understand? Okay, good.